All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about what might be the single most ambitious roadmap in crypto today, Vitalik Buterin's master plan to completely transform Ethereum by 2026. And look, this is not just a few small tweaks. We're talking about a full-on strategy to finally crack the code on scalability, lock in decentralization for good, and really cement Ethereum's place as the financial backbone for everything. And really, that's the billion-dollar question. Or I guess the trillion-dollar question, right? How do you take a network that's already managing billions of dollars and get it ready to handle trillions? The answer, it turns out, is a super carefully planned series of upgrades. Each one builds on the last, and they're all pointing towards one single massive goal. You know, this one quote really says it all. The vision from day one wasn't just to make a new kind of money. It was to build a true world computer, a platform that's so resilient, so censorship-proof, that apps can just run on their own, forever, with no single company calling the shots. And this 2026 roadmap, it's the blueprint to finally make that happen. Okay, so let's break this down. Pillar number one, and you could argue it's the most important one of all, ultimate scalability. Because if Ethereum is going to be a world computer, it has to be so fast and so cheap that literally anyone on the planet can use it without even thinking about it. That means it has to handle a crazy amount of traffic without those insane gas fees that, let's be real, have priced a lot of normal people out of the game. So the 2026 plan is all about making mass adoption not just a possibility, but basically inevitable.
So how do they do it? Well, check this out. The first big upgrade in 2026, called Glamsterdam, hits the problem from all sides. First, there's something called EPBS. Now, this is a fix for a sneaky problem called MEV, which is basically where super-fast bots can see your transaction coming and jump the line to profit off of it. EPBS helps level that playing field. Then you've got access lists and gas repricing, which are just straight-up upgrades designed to make transactions way more efficient and cheaper for you.
And get a load of this number. This shows you the groundwork is already paying off. Upgrades that happen in 2025 have already slashed the bandwidth needed by network validators by a mind-blowing 85%. Now, that's not a typo. This has a direct effect, making things cheaper on Layer 2s, which is where most of us are using the network anyway. The 2026 upgrades are just going to pour jet fuel on that fire.
All right, so the network's getting faster and cheaper. But what's the point if it just ends up controlled by a handful of companies? That brings us to pillar number 2, radical decentralization. For Vitalik Buterin, this is almost like a philosophical mission. It's a stand against centralized control, making sure Ethereum stays open for anyone, forever. I mean, just look at the internet we have today. A few giant companies control almost everything. Ethereum's whole vision is the complete opposite of that. It's a digital world with no central point of failure, where we, the users, actually have real ownership. This is so much bigger than just cool tech. It's about shifting the balance of power. So how do you know if you've actually achieved that? Vitalik has this really simple but brilliant idea called the walkaway test. It's easy. If the people who built an application just disappeared tomorrow, would it keep running perfectly on its own? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, you've hit true decentralization. That is the gold standard. And that's exactly what the second big 2026 upgrade, the Higata hard fork, is all about. It uses some really clever tech, like Virtual trees, to prove what's happening on the chain more efficiently. And history expiry lets the network, well, forget old data it doesn't need anymore. But here's the most important part. The end result of all this is that it becomes radically cheaper to run a full Ethereum node on your own computer at home. More people participating means a more secure and censorship-resistant network for everyone. And that brings us to pillar number 3. Once you've got a network that's incredibly fast, incredibly cheap, and incredibly decentralized, what do you have? You have the foundation for a brand new global financial system. This is where all that nerdy tech talk starts to have a huge, real-world economic impact. I mean, the scale is already massive. Right now, Ethereum's DeFi ecosystem consistently has around $70 billion of capital locked up and being used inside of it. And that's not just money sitting there. It's being actively used for lending, trading, you name it. The system is already incredibly strong. But maybe the biggest trend of them all is something called real-world assets, or RWAs. This is where we start taking things from the physical world, think real estate, company debt, government bonds, and bringing them onto the blockchain as tokens. The size of this opportunity is it's hard to even wrap your head around. Experts are predicting the market for these tokenized assets could hit $300 billion by 2026. That is an absolute tidal wave of capital, and Ethereum is standing right there,
ready to soak it all up. And listen, this isn't some fantasy about the future. The giants of traditional finance are already here building. We're talking BlackRock, JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton. They are actively putting funds on Ethereum as we speak. Even major sovereign wealth funds are getting in on the action. They're building the financial plumbing of the future, and they have chosen Ethereum's rails to build it on.
Okay, so you have these three massive pillars: scalability, decentralization, and DeFi. How do they all work together? Well, they create this incredibly powerful economic engine, like a flywheel that just keeps spinning faster and faster. This quote really just nails it. Because Ethereum was the first to do this, because it has the biggest community and the most secure network, it's just perfectly set up to capture an enormous amount of value as crypto and traditional finance start to become one and the same. The network effects are they're unstoppable. And a huge piece of this economic engine is the burn mechanism. It's actually genius. Here's how it works. The more people use the network for things like DeFi and RWAs, the more transaction fees are paid. But here's the magic trick. A big chunk of those fees is permanently destroyed, burned forever. So the more the network gets used, the scarcer the ETH asset actually becomes. It's an amazing piece of economic engineering. So think about that. On one side, you have the supply of ETH getting smaller and smaller. And on the other side, you have this absolute tidal wave of demand. You've got the institutional ETFs bringing in billions. You've got corporations eyeing ETH as a reserve asset. And of course, you have massive demand from inside the ecosystem itself for things like staking. It's a perfect storm. So when you just kind of step back and look at the whole thing, the tech upgrades, the economic model, the big money getting involved, you see it. You see how this whole master plan is built on these three perfectly interlocked pillars. You've got the scalability pillar, driven by upgrades like Glamsterdam, and its goal is simple: mass adoption. Then there's the decentralization pillar, powered by Higata, which is all about guaranteeing our freedom. And finally, you have DeFi dominance, fueled by real-world assets with the goal of becoming the new financial backbone. Each pillar supports the others, and together, they create something really, really powerful. So yeah, the 2026 plan isn't just about making a blockchain a little faster. It's about building the fundamental infrastructure for a more open, transparent, and user-owned world. The blueprint is right there in front of us. The vision is picking up speed every single day. The only real question left is, what gets built on top of it next?